Welcome to the Emerge Leadership Connection, the podcast that gives you the keys to unlock your heroic potential, develop into a legendary leader, and emerge into who you are meant to be. On today's episode, we have a conversation with Ed Squire and discuss the hashtag #MeTooWhatNow movement, how prevalent childhood abuse is, what happens after you raise your hands, the power of video content, and authenticity online. I'm your host, Cody Dakota, founder of the Leadership Guide and finalist for the Extraordinarian Award for coaches with ideas that can change people, businesses, and the world for the better for my ideas on leadership. Stay tuned to the end of the episode to discover how to join the League of Legendary Leaders, an association of leaders with the goal to raise $100,000 monthly to support nonprofit causes which are currently looking to impact the world and make it better for future generations. Now, on to the show. Hey Ed, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Cody. Thanks for having me on your show, man.
No problem. Thanks for being here. I am excited for this show because you are the founder of a movement that I think is pretty important. So tell us, what is this movement that you're working on?
Man, I'm so glad that thank you for calling it a movement. I would sure love it to be, and I hope it gets that way. But it's if you can think of the two most controversial hot topics that are going on in our country today, the first one is politics. Nobody likes to talk about that. And the other one is sexual abuse, and nobody likes to talk about that. So my topic is on sexual abuse. And I have a nonprofit called #MeTooWhatNow, and it is it's an extension of the Me Too movement where I'm focusing on what happens now. Now that there's so many people in our culture that have decided to come out and say, "Look, I've been sexually abused. Well, what do we do now? Let's move forward." And so the nonprofit focuses on speaking to survivors of childhood sexual abuse, but at the same time, because mental health is a big part of the effects of childhood sexual abuse, I'm an advocate in that arena as well. And I take a different approach to what I'm doing, and it's very, very exciting.
That is extremely exciting because there's so much that is going on just in that little intro that you've given me. One, right? It's fantastic to raise your hand and say something, right? Whether it's I've been wronged or whether it's I want to do something awesome in the world or I have this awesome idea for a business, whatever that is, right? But there's a big difference between raising your hand and actually doing something about it. Nothing happens unless you act. That's a huge piece of how anything gets done in the world.
Yes, and I've been involved in a lot of businesses over the years and had a very interesting career. And I can tell you that this would have been the very last choice on my list of things to do for a business. And taking action on it has been, it's been a very interesting. It's such a shameful topic is what it is. It's a fearful topic.
Yeah.
It's a complicated topic. And, one of the things I made sure when I started this was I don't get involved in, like, people ask me, what's my opinion about Bill Cosby, or how do I feel about, different celebrities or the Me Too movement or any of those things. And I rarely comment on them because my question is, how are you doing as a survivor? Like, where are you at? How's your healing going? Because the reality is, for me, my opinions on the various movements and things that are happening are going to help me in my journey. So it keeps me out of hot water when it comes to my opinion on these things. They all have their place, and some are good, some are greater than others, and maybe some aren't so good. But my focus is on the healing of the individual and how are you doing in that journey.
Definitely. And like, especially when you have these big celebrities and these big named people who, something comes out about them, whether it's true or not, that's beside the point, right? It feels like all the attention suddenly goes on that person instead of the people who actually need the help most, right?
That's exactly right. And it's frustrating for me as a survivor myself, because at the end of the day, I want to get better. Right? I want to live my life, and I don't want to constantly be in a swirl of controversy with opinions and whatnot. There's enough of that going on in our regular lives that, and like I said, it's complicated enough and difficult enough getting healed from this. Never mind the people that are putting the focus on individuals, right?
Exactly. And the problem isn't any single individual, right?
Well, no, see, that's a very good point.
Or whatever, right? That's a problem, sure, but it's not just them, right?
And that's I love that because like a lot of people ask me with the Brett Kavanaugh and Dr. Ford case, what's your opinion? Who do you believe? And the reality is, okay, this is when it comes to law, there's no one guilty until they're proven guilty. So I didn't say Brett Kavanaugh was innocent or he was guilty, and I couldn't support. I mean, I believe survivors. I mean, I believe them until they have been disproven, which is rare. It's rare. But even in the Brett Kavanaugh case, there were a couple of women and a gentleman who lied, who submitted false testimonies because they had an agenda. So that happens. And again, I like to stay away from those things because at the end of the day, I want to look in the mirror and go, how am I doing? Am I healing? And so I support a survivor when they say they're a survivor, and I also support an abuser if they say they're innocent. Right? So
because if they are truly innocent, that's a terrible thing to be accused of, right?
Absolutely. And then they suffer trauma. That's the thing that people don't realize too, is that if you're being accused of being an abuser and you're not, think of what you had to go through. So I don't get on the bandwagon of I always support survivors no matter what. It's like I do, there's, you know what I'm saying, right? I mean, it's you got to support people when it comes to equality and rights and fairness and the law. And at the end of the day, you have to love on people. That's where everything I'm focused on is going towards. Am I loving on that individual and in this situation, in this circumstance, and then that diffuses all the controversy. Because if I can't talk about that, at the end of the day, that's what ends up healing people is love, and that's where I bring everything back to. So.
Definitely. And I think that's so important in today's world. There's so much hate thrown around place to place. We don't take enough time to actually look at the people, right? And at the end of the day, it's the people that matter. You have to actually focus on the individuals. They're human beings. You know what I mean?
I sure do, man. I mean, I've been through this for a lot of years, and it doesn't. I mean, we all have, right? We all want to be loved and cared for. So, that's what's behind everything I'm doing.
Definitely. Now, before we actually set up our meeting, you shared some very scary statistics about this whole area that we're looking at.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about some of those statistics? Because that alone highlights how much bigger this really is than any single individual.
That's right, or any single, demographic, or the entertainment industry, or just childhood sexual abuse. But the reality is, in the United States alone, there's an estimated 60 million survivors of childhood sexual abuse alone, and that doesn't include people that have been maybe abused in colleges or on the job. And in Canada, where I'm originally from, it's around 10 million. So you're looking at 70 to 80 million people who are survivors of childhood sexual abuse. The statistic is 1 in every 6 boys and 1 in every 3 women will be sexually abused by the time that they're 18 years old. So talk about having a captive audience.
Yeah,
they're out there, right? And when I started doing this, I just knew that I just know that they're there, and I know that a certain percentage of those people are looking for help and looking to get assistance and get their lives figured out. And so with statistics like that, and then when you look at specifically in the church and then in schools, elementary schools and high schools and colleges, it is everywhere in our society, and it is next door neighbors, family members. It is so prevalent. It becomes something that people just don't want to talk about because it is so overwhelming. And I've been through that. stage of the overwhelmingness of the topic. But one of the recent documentaries I really liked was the Neverland series. And at the end of the two documentaries, the two men did a 1-hour special with Oprah Winfrey in New York. And the entire audience was made up of invited organizations that were either nonprofit or for-profit, but they were advocacy groups and individuals. So everybody in there was a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And one organization that I really like, which I think is probably the largest nonprofit for male adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse, was 1in6.org. And their name is made up of that statistic. And it's staggering. Yeah, it is. So where do you begin, and what do you do?
Exactly. Where do you begin? What can you do? Because it's so prevalent. I'm because of this is someone that I know. I remember there was a few years back, someone opened up to me about a situation they had been in, and they were in their college years, and like even if you're not the person experiencing it, and you're just someone who's hearing that story, it's so hard and difficult to even secondhand experience it, and all the traumas and the people disbelieving and pointing fingers, and this is a hard area to be in.
So that brings me to how and why I started Me Too What Now, right? What I didn't want to do is just be, there's so many advocacy groups at the state and federal level that are nonprofit, for-profit. There's just so much good work that's being done out there. And, I'm not a qualified certified professional in mental health care, but I'm a qualified certified professional in recovery. And so survivors at some point in their journey, one of the most powerful things they can do is connect with other survivors. Whether you know them personally or not, or it doesn't matter how or where or what the circumstance or situation is, but it's an important part to recovery, because when you begin to speak things in your mind that you haven't spoken of for years because of the fear and the shame, it literally begins to unlock neurotransmitters in your brain, and more memories begin to open, and emotions begin to get connected to that, and trauma begins to set in. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to find a way to fill a gap that I thought was in the advocacy arena in this area. And I found it by accident, because when I ended up losing my job because I went on disability for post-traumatic stress disorder, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And I came out of a high-end consulting career, so I was used to solving big problems for big companies. And now here I couldn't hold my job anymore. So when I started recovery, I dug into, okay, what is this all about? Like, what happened to me? How did I go from being a professional consultant to being somebody who couldn't manage his own schedule, who couldn't keep his anger in a public place, or couldn't keep my, I would have these outbursts in public, and began to exhibit the symptoms of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I began to do what I think millions of these tens of millions of people do. We go to the internet, right? Because it's private, and that's the big thing. And we can search on our own. And there's so much information out there. But after a while, and it didn't take long for me, that I noticed that most websites had the same kind of information. And I get that, and it's important, and it's helpful. And then I noticed that whether it was on an organization's website, or maybe if they had a YouTube channel or some other social media platform, their video content, which I was attracted to, which most people are today, it's a huge trend, I found interesting in the beginning, but then very boring very quickly, because the content for the most part was survivors sharing their stories, or medical or mental health care professionals talking about recovery. And it's such a heavy topic. How can you, I could only listen to it for so long, that I'd have to go watch a football game or hockey or go do something. So I wanted to find a way to reach people who were searching with video, because the rate that video content is growing on the internet hasn't even peaked yet.
It's astronomical.
Right? Like what is it now? There's like 500. I got the stats over here somewhere. It's the amount of YouTube views per minute is just beyond comprehension, right? Their capability to even manage that amount of video content. And so I thought, actually I didn't think this. My worship pastor at my church, he said to me, "Hey, Ed," he said, you should vlog your journey on YouTube. That's what you should. I think that'd be very interesting. I think people would find that interesting." And I thought, forget that. Put my recovery on YouTube? Are you kidding me? Like, what are people going to think? I mean, I got all these different people in my life that think very different things about me. Some people know me as a professional. Some people know me everybody is different when you put yourself on social media, Cody.
Yeah, it's hard
out there
sometimes to put out what you truly feel out there. Because everyone is watching, and when all eyes are on you, you're like, how authentic can I really be?
That's it.
Where I get the hate, right?
That's it.
That's something we try to avoid as people, is we try to avoid hate. And it's really difficult to have the courage of heart to really just stand up and be like, no, this is this is what I'm going through. This is the real deal going on right now. And I don't care if you like it or not, but this is the real stuff.
So then what I was faced with was the question of, you look on YouTube, and I began to study the success of various YouTube social media influencers. And I noticed that there was no common denominator as to the topic that people would have. So you could be a really nice guy and have several million people following you, or you could be a complete idiot. But being an idiot is a matter of somebody's opinion, you see.
Yeah,
right? I may call them an idiot, but you see what I'm saying? So you can be
completely
anything. Your topic could be, your topic could be different ways to scrape gum off the sidewalk. And there is a topic, and it's got hundreds of thousands of views. And I thought, well, what is the common denominator? And then when you look at these massive social media influencers that have hundreds of thousands or millions of followers, and you get them outside of their platform, maybe at a convention or on a podcast or something, you find out that they're a little bit different than what they are on their channel, because there's a persona that they're putting out there, but every single one of them will tell you the same thing. They're being themselves. They're just being themselves. And so your ability to be authentic and genuine is what sells. And that's where digital marketing, money and dollars is going today, is in authenticity on camera. And so how do you be authentic on camera, and your topic is childhood sexual abuse, and be interesting and get people to come back and develop a large following? Because I got to tell you, I did a massive study on I took like the top 20 nonprofits. They're advocating in this area. And I went through and how many views they had, when they started, how many videos they have, what their likes are, and how many people are subscribing. And the trend, for the most part, over 90% was not good. Right? So either they didn't put out content very often, or if they did, it wasn't very popular, or there were the odd video that was viral. But I was trying to figure out what could you do in that. And then, my worship pastor, Aaron, he just had the great idea. He said, just go on and be yourself. Just do what you're doing with me, right? And so that's what I did. And so my content on my channel has things like I vlog, just like a regular vlogger would, but I do it from where I am in my recovery. That's what I do. Like, some days are good, some days are bad, and I'm not afraid to put that up on social media. I've learned how to create content that is interesting, and I've learned a little bit of the art of how you make a good video. And my very first video I filmed, and it was almost 1 year ago today. I remember looking at it and going, "Oh my gosh, I cannot put that up on YouTube. That looks horrible. I mean, I look like an idiot." But then I thought, all of the really goofy things I did that shouldn't be on camera, if I actually took all those and put them on camera and added some funny music to it, it'd make a great blooper reel for something. And so that's what I did. So one of my playlists is just blooper reels and goofy things that happen. And another playlist is interviews with other survivors and mental health care professionals and nonprofits. And another playlist is my vlogs and some developing playlists that have different types of content that I think people are finding interesting, because I'm coming up to 1 year now in doing what I'm doing, and I've only got 34 videos. Now, some people think that's a lot. My goal was to put up one video a week, and then I realized how much work that is. But I managed to get up more than 2 videos a month, which is good. And I've got over I think it's 11,000, 12,000 minutes of views, over 4,300 individual unique views, 103 followers, and the average length of watch time is around 60 to 70%, which is phenomenal numbers on YouTube.
Right? Because how long is your regular video? For
2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes? Yeah,
2.5
that's
minutes.
great.
So, I mean, it doesn't matter how long it is, as long as your view time is staying within around but they say between 40 to 60%, you're doing good. And so I think I found something that's working, and I decided to create documentaries as well, which is part of the projects that I'm working on. And so I'm on a whole journey now that I'm thoroughly enjoying, and I'm finding a lot of people are being helped by it, right? And I get a lot of offline emails or direct messages and private messages from people telling me how much they appreciate and how much what I'm doing is helping them. But at the same time, I'm quick to tell them how much their journeys are also helping me, because I haven't arrived yet and I need help. And what's interesting is if I don't post for 3 or 4 days, I get people coming back saying, "Hey, how are you? Like, you haven't been posting. Are you all right?" And so I have this live organic relationship going on with a lot of people. And so a movement, right, is beginning to happen, like you're saying. And so this next year is going to be really, really exciting. I'm really looking forward to it. And I think I'm filling a niche that is not really there. And although I can't provide professional help, I can recommend to people where they can go. And there's different opportunities on my website where people can look for help. It's not extensive, but it's there. And just me sharing my story through video has really been a journey of healing in my own life, right? Of being authentic, and it's helping others as well. So
definitely. So I've got a question. How do you go from saying to your pastor, "Heck no, there's no way I'm going to do this," to making the leap and saying, "Okay, I finally have the courage. I'm actually going to do this now." How did that occur for you? When he said that, I had no video camera. I had no video production capabilities, right? I'd never done any of that. I didn't know what ISO and frame rate and all these technical terms for filming that you need to know. And then the biggest fear for me was, I told him, I said, I can't even be authentic with myself. How am I supposed to, how could I just baffled by it. But then I just thought, everything in life happens for a reason. And, my tagline for Me Too What Now is called Find Yourself, Live Yourself, Give Yourself. And that is the process of recovery. There's typically in the industry, depending on if you go to the DSM-4, if you listen to, or if you look at, psychologists and psychiatrists, there's 5 stages of healing from trauma. And they go through learning to understand your identity, finding out who you are, and then how you live that and overcome the difficulties and circumstances that are part of you understanding your identity and overcoming the hurts and the pain that you've gone through. And then you learn how to live that, and then your life becomes vibrant. And so find yourself, live yourself, give yourself is my tagline. And I thought, at this stage of my life, I just feel that I'm called to doing it. Right? I just felt called to do it. And I just didn't see any other options for me in my life. And I thought, what, if I really, really apply myself to this, I know it's going to help me. I just absolutely know it. And I mean, and I knew that because I practiced. I thought, if I can learn to just be authentic on camera, right? Just who is the real me,
right? Just this process of figuring out who I am. And so I did this for a couple of months, just sat in front of the camera doing this. And it was really stressful. When you record yourself and look at yourself, you see yourself for who you really are.
Yeah, for better or for worse.
That's right.
Because
right?
sometimes you see things or you hear things that you don't recall ever actually happening.
That's right. I'm not looking forward to watching this recording.
I've totally been there, and I've caught myself saying ridiculous things and making ridiculous hand movements and making ridiculous faces. I totally understand that.
Yeah, and so I just felt there was a calling to do it, and I thought, I'm going to try this for 1 year, and if in 1 year nothing works, then, or if even at any time during that process, if I wanted to quit, I could quit, and I just felt the only way for me to do this, no matter where it gets to, is to be authentic. And I mean, I guess that's a hard question for me to answer, because it didn't, he said that, and I tried it, and I didn't like it, but then I thought, the blooper video I made from it, I thought was hilarious. But then I thought, well, how can that help anybody? But the reality is, humor helps everybody. And so I thought, well, if there's a way I can use my personality to lift the heaviness and the weight of this issue from people's shoulders, but at the same time, because I'm living that recovery on my own myself right now, then maybe something could come out of that. And that's the way it started, and that's what it's become. And I'm having an absolute gas doing it. I really enjoy it.
Awesome. So one of the things you said is you felt like it was a calling, right? What made it feel like a calling? Because I feel like there's so many people that are searching for some sort of calling, and they have no idea what it is. They don't even know where to begin to look for a calling. And it just seems like it's such a stretch to even like hear that phrase to so many people. So what was like that flag that went up for you that said, like, I feel like I need to go and actually do this, even if I don't feel like I'm ready for it, even if I look at a first video and I know I'm not perfect and things are kind of wonky anyways? Like, what was that first flag?
I think this, I'm going to be creating a series that is called Find Yourself, Live Yourself, Give Yourself. I'm going to speak to each one of those topics, and they'll be like short 5-minute videos. But the reality was, I was like the majority of survivors, you have an identity issue at some point. When you first begin to face, wow, this is affecting me, or something in life has triggered you, like happened to me later in life, and you have a problem, and you know that you have an identity issue. And usually codependency goes along with that, and performance orientation, meaning you're trying to act a certain way to get people to like you, or you're trying to assume you think you know what they're thinking about you, and you're trying to act like you're trying to act like you think they're wanting, this whole codependent, borderline personality disorder type of behavior. And I think everybody has this to some degree. We're all concerned with what people think, and maybe we all have insecurities and identity issues. But when you have trauma, it is so highly dysfunctional. It can be detrimental to yourself and to people around you. And so that's a major problem. And so when I first realized that, I lost my career to this, I looked back and I saw that my whole life was impacted by this, and that I've been living just a lie in so many areas of my life, all my life. I cheated on my wife for 13 years that we were married, and while I was a youth leader in my church, I was also paying for sex, and it's just these massive identity trauma issues that you're dealing with. And for me, it brought on a tremendous amount of self-loathing. So I hated myself, and I was suicidal. And so that's a big bucket of problems to deal with.
Yeah, it's huge.
And so I figured, if I don't get myself fixed, now this began in 2012. So actually, kind of all over the place because it's such a good question. I just got to the point. I think this is where a lot of survivors get to. They're like, what the hell happened? Like, why? What did I do to deserve this in my life? And the answer is you didn't do anything to deserve it. But the reality is it happened to you. And it destroyed you as a human being in many ways. And so it was in 2012. It was August 24th, 2012. I was in a hotel room in Wisconsin. And I was working for a major insurance company there. And I was drinking a bottle of wine every night when I got off work. And I was taking prescription medication and having panic attacks. And I finally said, you know what, God? Yeah, I was cursing at him, is what I did. Right? I was basically, screw you, right? This is what it's like to be, well, thank you very much, creator of the universe, right? And I think that's a very fair question. And so when people are mad at God for what happened to them, I should be mad because you have every right to be mad. Why wouldn't you be mad? And so I demanded from God, I said, you know what? I believe that you created, the earth and all this stuff. Why can't you do something for me? I just want to be normal. I just want help. And that's where I'm going to hit record on my thing again. I'm sorry. There we go. I can pick right back up right there. And so I just was so angry with what had happened to me. And I just said, do something, would you? Right? Just do something. And looking back now, and I can just see him sitting in the room with me going, Ed, you know what? I've been actually waiting for you for a long time to say that. And so buckle in, son, because I'm coming to the rescue. And so it was from 2012 until now that really everything brought me to where I am now. And I really believe he answered my prayer. Now, to answer the question, how could a loving God do that? I'm not going to get into it. This is a journey everybody has to figure out for themselves, right? I just know that from 2012 until now, there's absolutely no way that I could have made this up and brought myself to the level of healing that I am now and doing what I'm doing. My life is I'm just living a full dream. I'm so satisfied and fulfilled in my life now. And all my life, I wanted to have success. I wanted money. I wanted position. I wanted to, make a lot of money and I could help God. But the reality was the more I made, the more I spent on myself and the more I just frivolously wasted it. And so that's the roundabout answer to your question, right? Is how I decided to do it. What I felt was my calling. I just finally realized that, you know what? Nothing happens by accident. I just don't believe that you and I are communicating by accident. I don't believe this is the first and last time either. I think there's a connection that we're going to have that's going to impact other people through what we're doing. Because you're called to doing what you're doing. I know that. I mean, I've listened to a ton of your podcasts. I'm like, man, this guy, I love, the drive. I love your story, where you came from, and you're on the same path. And so, my hope is that, for other people that are experiencing this, of the tens of millions of people that are out there, that they come to find out who they are, what their identity is, and as a person, I'm not saying in a sense, or you need to ask God. You need to figure yourself out, and I think when you do that, you'll get the answers, right, and they'll be real. And so I couldn't deny it. I just thought, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. And so I'm giving my whole heart to it, and we'll see where the future goes.
Definitely. So like a very short way to try to paraphrase that, I think, is that you were just ready for a calling to be there. Like you'd gone through life and, whatever happens, and you just hit this point where you're ready for something. And that's when that calling begins to come.
See, that's the thing, right? Is you're ready, right? All my life, I was trying to be ready. But how do you know when you're really ready? I mean, I really thought I was, but I was so deceived in my own head. It didn't even occur to me that cheating on my wife was such a bad thing. Because you hide it. If she doesn't know, if nobody else knows, it's not hurting anybody. You're trying to keep all these things under control. But the reality is, that's very dysfunctional. It's not healthy. And come to my surprise, I thought I wasn't hurting anybody but myself because nobody knew. But the reality is I was hurting everybody else. but I couldn't figure out how. And the way that happened is when you do that, you close yourself off emotionally to your wife, to your friends, to your family, to even strangers around you, because you got this secret and you're not able to fully authentically be yourself. So I had no idea that all these hidden things I was doing were actually hurting other people.
Definitely. I think that there's so much power in recognizing that, because when you decide to close off a piece of yourself, it's kind of like throwing a rock into the pond, right? There's ripples, and everyone can feel the ripples, even if there's no necessarily easy way to see where the rock hit, why those ripples are coming or anything. Those ripples are coming anyways, and they impact everything around, right? It's not like you throw the rock in the middle of the pond and the ripples go in one direction, right? The ripples go everywhere and they impact everything, whether you recognize it or not.
That's true. That's true, and it's very scary. But I never thought in a million years I would ever sit here on a podcast or go on a website and make a video and tell people the things I just told you in the last 15 minutes, right? They're shameful, they're fearful, but you know what? It's so liberating. It's so freeing. It has made me stronger as a man. I've gotten respect from people for doing this. Friends that are, just dear and close and intimate to me that I never would have had if I didn't do this. And now it's like I don't even think about it. Like when I go to share my story or people ask me any details, that sometimes they're like, they ask me, "Are you okay sharing it? Like, are you all right?" And I'm like, I'm so fine with it. My concern is the person I'm talking to. How are you going to be when I tell you what happened? Because people, when they hear, my story or other survivor stories, it impacts the people who are even listening. And that's what my part of my mission is to eliminate the fear and shame associated with childhood sexual abuse. I'm not an organization that's trying to stop childhood sexual abuse. There's some great organizations that are doing that, and they have the education and the certification and the professional training to do that. But my specialty is in overcoming shame and fear and helping people get out of that. And that doesn't mean you have to make a YouTube video and tell everybody what happened, but it means coming to terms with the realities of what happened in your life and talking to somebody about it and realizing that there is nothing to be ashamed of and there is nothing to be fearful of.
Definitely. It almost seems like a lot of these different organizations that are doing amazing work are the second step. And what you're doing is really the first step that people need. And that's kind of the problem, right?
Yes.
So many times when we see a problem, we try and solve it at the higher level when we need to get down to the ground level, right? In leadership, right? In any sort of organization you lead, if you want to bring your team up with you, right? You don't just call down and say, "Hey, get up here." You go down to them and you bring them up with you. Right.
That's right. And that's a hard thing to do when you're prideful, right? I'm having to, I feel when I first started doing this, it's like I'm bringing myself to this low position. I have to get to the starting point at some place. We all do. But now it's so different. Because it's so funny because you and I met at the New Media Summit convention in February in Florida, and it was a huge deal for me because I knew that everybody forms opinions about what they see and based on a conversation. And I look at myself and I go, "Wow, okay, guy's got really long hair." You would never guess me to be a corporate strategic analyst for the Boeing Corporation or for Pepsi-Cola Global, right? But that's what I did, and I was just concerned, like, when people get to know me outside of what I've been doing, what are they going to think? So one lady said to me at the end of the convention, she goes, "I have to tell you something." She goes, like, "When I first saw you, I wasn't sure like who you were and what you were doing." She said, "But and I was on her podcast recently. She said, I thought you were a movie star. So she said, I thought I was a movie star. It's just so awesome. And then another person thought I was part of the media crew, right? That was, filming and doing interviews and stuff. And but no one sees me as an advocate for childhood sexual abuse, and nobody sees me doing it with humor and inspiration, and with trying to create captivating, interesting video that is funny and informative, and that's what I'm all about, right? And nobody sees that. And I'm still on disability, and I struggle. I struggle more than I don't struggle still, right? So depression and bipolar and anxiety. And I go to church, my pastor and my worship pastor, they're very good friends of mine. Well, they haven't seen me for the last month because I've been going through a bipolar, manic, high anxiety stage, a phase, and this is part of the journey. And I'm going to see my psychiatrist next week, and we're going to, for the first time in a couple of years, make a change to my meds to help me focus more. And I'm not ashamed to talk about that because that's my reality. It won't always be my reality, but that's what it is now. And just like you said, you got to start. You got to bring yourself to where your reality is. And when it comes to childhood sexual abuse, it's just having honest, authentic conversations with people. I know that when survivors hear this podcast and see it, I absolutely know that they're going to reach out to me. They're going to reach out to you because they've heard this, right? And maybe they've heard it in a different way. And which brings me to a project that I'm working on that I wanted to share with you if I could.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm putting together a documentary, and a lot of people have heard about my documentary that I'm doing, and it's on the lawsuit that I filed against the school board and the teacher when I was sexually abused in elementary school, and the goal is for that to come out this fall. But I have another project that I don't talk about publicly very much, and I didn't think it would be a good idea until I met a guy by the name of Simon Weinberg, and he has a company called Big Voice Productions out of San Diego. And New Media Summit has another function in San Diego in the fall, and so I signed up for that because I want to go and meet Simon when I'm out there. I met Simon at a convention last October in Virginia, and I put together a display table and banners, and I had brochures, and I got my business cards, I got wristbands and pens, and I went as a vendor, right? And I was incredibly scared of doing the whole thing. I still haven't made a vlog out of that yet, which I'm going to, because there I was with some of the largest nonprofits in the country. Like 16.org was there. They were the keynote speaker, and Big Voice Productions was there, and they're a massive film production company that does Hollywood-sized movies. And I'm there with, I had 24 videos made, and I had, 250 people on Instagram, and I wasn't much of anything, but I thought, I have just enough content that I felt, and I have a compelling enough mission and vision and problem statement that it would be worth going to see how I'm received at that level, right? And if people didn't see the value in, so what do? I make videos, right? And my whole business strategy is based on taking advantage of finding out how to reach people who nonprofits are trying to reach. Right, back to your original question of reaching people who are out there that are untouched, right? How do you find these people? And I just really felt, and I still do, and I always will, that video is the way to reach them. And so this guy, Simon, came up to me and he said, he asked me what I was all about. He owned a movie production company, and I told him of an idea that I had. And I was going to do this with or without a big movie production budget. I just thought, what? I would like to hit the road with my camera, with the big Joby stick, my big DSLR on there. And I'd like to travel across the country and just vlog a journey of me getting meetings with some leaders of nonprofits and other advocacy groups and with survivors, and doing, some man on the street type of unscripted, conversations with people on the street, and use my kind of quirky personality and put that together into a documentary. I just thought it'd be fun and cool, and I didn't think it'd be that big of an interesting idea. But Simon, I talked to him about it, and he was absolutely convinced that that is not only a good idea, but it's something I really should pursue. So the plan right now is in 2021 is to begin filming. And I'm going to see if I can raise enough money, which is, it's a lot of money, more money than I've ever raised before for anything. And I'm going to see if I can actually hire a film crew and get a production team and use Big Voice Productions out of San Diego and do a full-blown major, 4K quality documentary film, travel across the United States, and the plan is to travel across Canada as well with this idea. And so that's what I'm going to be working towards in the next 18, 24 months here.
I think that's such an awesome project. I'm super excited to hear about it. I'm super excited to see it come to life because like what we've been talking about is this impacts so many people, right? And they don't know, a lot of them don't want to be heard, right? Because they're scared, they're terrified. They don't know how they can be heard. They don't know how they're going to be received, even if they are heard, right? And then they don't even know where to go if they do happen to get heard, right?
That's right.
And this is going to be a journey, a process showing them all these different phases that what they are already seeking secretly.
Yes. And so I will be vlogging. I'll be because I'm coming up to my 1-year anniversary. I've got my content plan laid out for the next year. And a big part of that content plan is talking about this and this, oh my God, I'm going to, this movie producer owner guy said this is a hero's journey that you need to go on. Do you know what a hero's journey is? And I said, yes. He said, well, that's what this is. And he said, let me ask you a question, Ed. He says, if you could have anything out of Me Too right now, what would it be? And I thought, oh my gosh. I said, well, I'd like it to be really big. I'd like it for a lot of people to know all about it. And he said, no. He says, you're thinking from your head. He says, I want you to think from your heart. So if this could be anything, what do you want it to be? And I was like, okay, think from my heart, not my head. I couldn't think of it. I was on the spot. What is he looking for? So I said, well, I like it to be really, really big, Simon. I sounded like an idiot is what I sounded like. And he goes, look, Ed, I want you to sit down. I want you to just take a deep breath, okay? Just take a breath. I want you to close your eyes and just think for a moment and ask yourself, if you could have anything, what would it be? And I thought, what answer is he looking for? My ADHD brain is going what is he asking? And I didn't know what he was saying. I said, you know what, Simon? I said, this is all I got. I said, I've only ever told my therapist this, but I'll tell you because it's the only thing I can think of. I said, if I could have anything in life, never mind with Me Too, what now, but if I could have anything in my life, before I die or when I die on my gravestone, I just wanted to say, Ed Squire, if you knew him, you knew he was a real deal. Or Ed Squire, the authentic, real. I said, Simon, I just want to, I cursed a little bit. I still do sometimes. I said, I just want to be myself, Simon. And that's what I want. Okay. And I was a little bit upset. I said, that's all I got. Okay. That's from my heart. I don't know how that applies to your question, but that's what I want. And he said, Ed,
yeah. Go ahead.
He said, that's the answer I was looking for. And he said, you take that attitude. He said, if you curse a little bit here and there, he says, just this country, these people, survivors, they need to see someone like you living their true authentic self and being out there and let's get this on film, he said. I was like, let's get this on film. I mean, you're going to help me? What does that mean, let's get this on film? And as it turns out, he's very interested in being a part of this project. And so it took on a whole lot different serious meaning for me when he said that, because he's a movie film producer and marketer. And for him to say that, I thought, maybe I need to really think about this being more than a fun journey that might help people. Maybe it could have a major impact and he said, if you think about it, Ed, he said, there's nothing out there like this. There are no documentaries like this. If there are, it's scripted. That nobody's just in their own journey, just letting it rip, and you just let it rip. Ever since I met you, you don't care what people think. And I said, that's right, I don't. I mean, I do, but I don't. And being a Christian, it's hard sometimes because I don't try to act like that anymore. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't even like telling people I'm a Christian, to be honest with you, because then automatically they think what you're supposed to be like, and I don't think I fit what that is. Being a Christian is something you are. It's not something you do, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I got God, I got Jesus Christ living in me, and that's it. That's it. That's being a Christian. It doesn't matter what I did, what I do, what my habits are. I mean, those things are so insignificant in what that actually means. And so I'm a little rough around the edges, you have to excuse me, but in my Christianity, because that's just where I'm at, right? It's just everything in my life has to be real, or I'm just not interested in it.
Definitely.
And so,
and like so many people, when they hear something, they automatically try to put you in some sort of a box, right? And you're feeling this on different levels, whether it's Christianity, whether it's I went through childhood abuse, when people hear these things, they automatically try to put you in a box. And how often do we do that to people? We hear just some small piece of their story without actually getting into it, and we just try and put them into a box, and we don't actually figure out who is this person.
Yes,
right?
yes.
That's what we want. Is we want to be seen as who we are, not these contrived little boxes that are in existence.
And it's so easy to be judgmental these days, right? And I used to be like that all the time, and I still am sometimes. I'm always working on it. And it's one of the reasons why I let my hair grow long, because I was just like, I just want to be who I am. And I don't really quite know who that is yet. So I'm in my 50s. And my hair, I don't, like people say, oh, you color your hair? No, I don't. And bonus, I'm not losing any either. So let it grow. Just be myself. And I think that's really what God wants. He used to not like the hypocrites, right? Christ used to he couldn't stand the hypocrites. And, hypocrites is in the Greek, the original meaning for it is actually when you pretend to be something you're not. Because in Greek theater, when it started back in those days, they would wear masks, right, to portray a different character, and they were called a hypocrite for doing that. And it wasn't like now we have a negative connotation to it. Oh, you're a hypocrite, but it actually meant, and it does mean, you're being somebody that you're not. So that may be a positive thing, it may be a negative thing, but in acting, that's what it is. You're a hypocrite when you're acting something different, and that's what God doesn't like, is when you're acting other than who you really are. So you need to figure out, this is for me anyway, I need to figure out who I am right now in this moment. And if it's a little rough around the edges for now, then that's okay. I'm not going to pretend to not be rough around the edges right now. I think that will smooth out as I go, but I'm just tired of just pretending to be something I'm not. Or here's Cody. I'm like, oh my God, Cody, I was nervous getting invited to your podcast because I've met John Maxwell, and I've listened to you. I'm like, man, you're a good thinker, right? You're a good leader, right? I think you have your act together at a very young age, and so I find it. I think it's easy for people to feel either intimidating or like, oh, how should I act when I'm on this podcast with Cody? Cody, I'm a high-end business consultant, and all this crap I used to say. I used to try to impress people with my career, and it's not like that anymore, right? It's just wonderful just being myself. And you are just a wonderful example of somebody who is being themselves. And that's really what all of this boils down to. We kind of went off the bunny trail with being with being a Christian, right?
Yeah.
And like when I meet other Christians, I'm like, don't don't get your hopes up at what you think I might be, because you're going to get disappointed real quick. I haven't arrived yet, but God knows my heart, and I'm getting better. I get a little better every day, and he's the first person I meet every single morning, and that's what my life is all about, right?
That makes me think of a story from Saint Francis. Saint Francis of Assisi had just this. He's one of my favorite saints in the Christian.
I know he is.
I'm actually not I'm not a Catholic myself, but I've been highly influenced by the Catholic mindset because I went to a Catholic college. I've had a lot of friends who are Catholics, and Saint Francis of Assisi did some amazing work within the Christian world. There's this one story of him where he was starting to get this really good notoriety. People were all following him, and they were starting to put him up on a pedestal, right? Because he's just this living example of, what is it to live who you are, even when it's against the grain and everything, right?
Okay.
And people were starting to call him a saint. Now in the Catholic Church, you can only become a saint after death, because you can screw up a lot while still in life, right? Right. That's basically how it works. And basically what St. Francis told the people is, don't call me a saint. I'm not dead yet. I could still screw up tomorrow, right? Like, I'm not there yet.
Yes, that's right. I love that. And I love St. Francis of Assisi's sayings and quotes. That's powerful. But that's what Me Too What Now is all about, really, is finding yourself, living yourself, and giving yourself. I mean, if I'm ever feeling down, I watch my own videos because I think they're so funny. On my website and on my YouTube channel, I have a little 2-minute little introduction to what is Me Too What Now, and I'm downtown in Denver, and it was like just a off the cuff thing. I thought I should explain to people what it is I'm doing, and so I got my card, my label, and I'm talking about it. I'm all excited about it and everything. Boom. And that is a really funny clip. But it's so powerful because I was just being myself and being authentic. And there were people all around me watching because I have like 2 cameras set up and a GoPro I got this whole production thing going on, and I'm by myself. There's nobody around. And a lot of homeless people come up and they ask me for money and stuff. And that's a whole another piece of my story, which I love, right? I love meeting the homeless people. And, it's just about finding out who you are, find yourself, and then live that. And then forget when I lost my job in December 2016, I was going to coffee shops early in the morning, which I still do quite often because I like going when there's no people there. As soon as people come around, I usually like to leave. I'm not really big into crowds, only for short periods of time. And so I went to a new coffee shop, and the barista said to me, so what do you do? And like people always ask, right? What do you do? Yeah. And it just suddenly hit me. I had already been on disability for 6 months, and if people asked me what I did, I'd tell them all about my high-end consulting career because it just sounded so great, right? And then but I didn't tell them I was on disability because I thought, I'm going to get off disability and go back to my high-end job. But when that disappeared, and I wasn't going back, and I got terminated, and that barista asked me, what do you do? I was in a shock, and I looked at him and I said, nothing. and I was so, you could tell I was confused, right? He goes, okay, so like nothing? And I said, nope. And he goes, well, so you obviously don't have a job? And I said, nope. He said, well, are you retired? And I said, no. But he never thought, I don't look like I'm on disability, right?
Yeah.
So he never thought to say, are you on disability, right? He just looked at me confused, and he goes, well, that must be nice. Well, I guess it is. And then it is nice, actually, because whether you have a job or not, or your career, your business, even though I'm busy with Me Too right now, I can monitor what activity I'm involved in, and my goal is to get off disability through this. This is where I'm headed. But it's whether you're working or not. I think we should all be able to, at any point, not identify who we are with what we do, just who you are with who you are. When people say, "Well, what do you do?" I just I live. I mountain bike. I snow ski. I travel. Oh, what do you know? What I meant is, what do you do? Oh, what do I do? I love my mom. I love my sister. They're great. But we just dodge the whole career piece, right? Because people, as soon as you tell them what you do, they form an opinion, right?
Yeah.
On what type of person that you are. And
they
so
try to put you in a box.
That's right. That's right. And so now if you got rock star hair, right? Now you can come up with all kinds of things and tell them, right? I can't wait till hey, I'm a social media YouTube influencer. Now that makes sense. That's that I can see that. But anyway, it's been a wonderful journey. It's been great being on your show too.
Definitely. Thanks. Is there anything else that you really want to touch into?
I love people ask me that question. What I want to touch into is of the 60 some odd million people that are survivors of childhood sexual abuse. If you hear this podcast or you hear me anywhere, or you need to talk to somebody, right? And just tell someone your story. And that's where the beginning of healing begins. And so, by all means, I was really fortunate. That's another reason why I know this is my calling. Me Too What Now was not taken as a domain, and it wasn't taken as a hashtag. It wasn't taken on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or on Facebook. So if you search Me Too What Now, all one word, just Google that, you'll find me everywhere. And I hope that you find something that helps you in your journey. And by all means, reach out to me. I spend several hours a day just communicating with people that are either survivors or they're also social media influencers like I am in this community. I'm certainly not the only one, and there's a lot of other people doing great work out there on social media. But reach out, right? Reach out, and that doesn't even mean going to get professional help at this point, or maybe even ever. But just for your own self, for your own well-being and your own life, talk and look me up and or reach out to another nonprofit organization, and by all means, you know what, it's great getting it behind you. It's great dealing with it, and it's great becoming a whole person and living free. That's what this is all about. So
definitely, and I what you just said right there, I think that is the first piece to really being authentic. Right? Is you have to be able to say what is your story, no matter how difficult it is, right? Because if you can't say your story, and stories drive the world, right? Your story drives everything you do. And if you can't live that story, and it's an epic tale, whether you recognize that or not, every person's story is an epic tale. And the more you can live into it, the more authentic you can be, and the easier you can live into who you're supposed to be, and that starts with the story. Who are you? And it's okay to say, I don't exactly know right now.
That's right. And it doesn't have to be public. That's the thing. It doesn't have to be public. The first time I ever shared my story was in 2015. I met a new friend, and we sat down, and he says, Ed, so tell me all about yourself. And I thought, I am going to tell him all about myself. I've never told anyone. And he had a nonprofit that worked in this area, right? And so I felt safe with him, and I let it all go. And that was the start. That was December of 2015. That was the start of everything really turning around for me. And that could be for a whole other episode if you wanted to do another one, because I now advocate for an organization called SHIFT that does anti-child sex trafficking. And so that's another part of the organization that I work with. And I really, part of my story, unfortunately, is having exploited that industry. And that's another, and you can tell by the way I'm looking around. I feel it. It's still something I'm ashamed of, but I'm not afraid to talk about it. And that's a whole nother industry that is shockingly huge, just like childhood sexual abuses that we don't like to think about or look about or talk about.
Definitely. And I think that would be a great thing to have you all back on for. I
can't believe I invited myself onto another episode.
Hey, you know what? I don't care. For me, I love having good conversations with people that are trying to do something in the world. And sure, we all come from things that we'd rather not talk about, things we're ashamed of, things that
That's right.
didn't go the way we would hope they would go. You know, things happen to us that shouldn't happen to us, right?
It's life. It's life. It's everybody's story, right?
Exactly. Right? And everyone's unique story can make such a dramatic change in the world. If you're willing to talk to somebody so that you can be authentic, at least to one person, whether that's reaching out to you, Ed, whether that's reaching out to me, whether that's reaching out to a nonprofit or a therapist, or, you have to be authentic to somebody. And the more we can live into the story of who we actually are, the more we can actually change the world. And really, that's what makes you legendary. Right? Is living into that authentic version of yourself, living into that story, not saying it's necessarily all okay that happened, right? But that it did happen. And this is what we're going to do now, right? It's the action. It's not just me too. It's me too. What are you going to do about it now? Me too.
Yes.
What now?
That's right. And that doesn't have to, in the context of what we're talking about, it doesn't have to have anything to do with sexual abuse. It's just, here's my story. I'm telling it because we all have trauma or difficulty or sadness or something that's impacted our life. Oh, and I don't know if you've ever read the book by Andy Andrews called The Butterfly Effect. It's it's a great book. And it talks about how, that every single person has a purpose on the planet, and you don't know who you're going to impact by talking to somebody or by having a relationship with somebody. To what you were saying, you may not realize who you're going to help or impact, or how what your story is going to do to change the world. And it sounds like change the world. Yeah, change the world.
Yeah,
you don't know it. Changing the world doesn't have to be something big, right? When you just impact somebody's life, that's another world. It's their world.
It's a huge world, right? The role of a parent in one kid's life is just as important as the role of someone starting a huge movement. And a movement, at the end of the day, it starts with one person, right? And a lot of times, that person isn't even the one who finishes the movement, right?
That's right.
They're not even the most famous part of the movement, right? Like, even in the United States, right? The end of segregation. It wasn't Martin Luther King who started the end of segregation. He wasn't the first person to raise his hand, but he's one of the most famous people. It's because he played a huge role in it. But he was impacted by someone else before him, who was impacted by someone else before him, who was impacted by someone else before him. And if you take a step forward living into what you have the potential to become, even if it seems small, go for it. You need to become who it is you were meant to be, no matter how small, because the smallest roles tend to have the biggest impact. And we have no idea. It's the butterfly effect.
Have you seen that TED Talk?
Impacts everything.
Where it's called How to Create a Movement. It's a 3-minute video. And the guy talks about, there's a YouTube video up on the screen behind him. And he goes, here's how you create a movement. And it was a party in the summertime, and it was have you seen this? It's on a hill, it's all grassy, right? It's like really poor quality. And there's this guy, he's probably drunk, right? He's just dancing and just being a complete, you look at him and go, man, what a fool.
The guy out there.
The only guy out there.
At him and
for minutes, right? He's out there for like a long time. And then one person joins him, right?
Yeah.
And then another, and then another. Next thing you know, pandemonium breaks out, and it's a massive movement, and you don't know who started it, and it doesn't matter, right?
Exactly.
Just one person did something, and one person joined, right? And that's how I feel about Me Too. What now, man? I don't have to have a large following. I don't care. It could stop here. I don't care. All that matters is somebody being helped today, and am I being helped? Right? Is this something that's benefiting someone? And that's all that matters, right? Because it's going to have a ripple effect somewhere in the world. So
exactly.
That's been fun.
Awesome. So what are the best ways for anyone to get a hold of you if they want to get a hold of you? And if you have any trouble getting a hold of Ed, feel free to get in contact with me, and I'll get you in contact with him as well. But what are the best ways to get in contact with you?
Well, I always tell people, I mean, I'm highly active on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. But if you can either Google my name, Ed Squire, or Me Too What Now, all one word. Just Google that, and I'm there. And feel free to private message me, send me an email, and on my website, metowhatnow.com, there's lots of ways to contact me through email or anything. But but feel free to reach out. I get back to everybody as quickly as I can. I'm not that busy that I can't take the time to. I would rather connect with someone than make a video. You know what I mean? That's what's important to me. So that'd be great. So thanks for asking that.
Definitely, yeah. And at the end of the day, right, it's all about connections anyways. It's one of my favorite things to talk about is we live in a world that puts such a high emphasis on independence, but at the end of the day, independence isn't the greatest thing we can achieve. The greatest thing we can achieve is interdependence, right? We need each other to really thrive to the highest levels.
That's right.
You need me, and we need others, right?
That's right. And when it comes to this particular topic, it's not easy to go, yeah, that makes sense, Cody. Let me reach out to the world, because it's shameful and it's fearful. Yeah. And so that's why I'm hoping that, well, I'm not hoping, it already is. It's a place for people to go to connect, and you don't even have to reach out to me. Just watch my videos and just allow my journey to impact your journey. And what ends up happening is other people's journeys are impacting mine. So don't be afraid to reach out.
Definitely. Awesome. Thank you so much, Ed.
Thank you, Cody. Been a real pleasure. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks for listening to this episode. Please make sure to go onto your favorite podcast player of choice and there rate the podcast, then subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. And then, if you truly want to be a leader, share this episode with someone that you know will be impacted, because the best leaders fuel not only themselves, but others as well to their heroic potential. If you want to unlock your heroic potential faster, then you will want to join the League of Legendary Leaders, an association of leaders who are dedicated to unlocking their heroic potential, unlocking the heroic potential of others, and where legendary leaders are born. We also have a goal to raise $100,000 monthly to support nonprofits that are actively undertaking causes to impact the future in areas including neurodiversity, positive psychology, homelessness, and more. Seize the call now. Go to www.theleadership.guide and click Get Free Guidance Now to propel you on your journey to legendary leadership. I'm your host, Cody Dakota, and I'm honored to have spent this time with you today. My final message for you, and listen closely. It's time. Wake up your heroic potential. Let go of your fears and anxieties, and let's discover what is possible on your journey to become a legendary leader. Emerge and become who you were meant to be.